Hi everyone. Okay, I'm doing a bit of an experiment here. This is part of the hints and tips videos that I've promised you. It came up the subject of last week, I think it was, online. People were asking the difference between what happens when you add water to watercolour pencils as opposed to adding a solvent to oil pencils, wax-based pencils. I decided that I was going to do a bit of a more in-depth video just where not only do I cover the wax and the oil pencils against the watercolour pencils, but also I've thrown in the Derwent Inktense pencils as well. What I've done as well is just selected a few different surfaces. So here we are using all white papers. So first of all, Pastelmat, which is obviously the surface I use the most. I've got Stonehenge, which again is 100% cotton, vellum finished, and that's 250 grams. Then I've got some Bockingford watercolor paper, it's cold press. Again, obviously, you know, traditionally that's what you would use watercolor and watercolor pencils on. Then we've got the Strathmore 500 Bristol vellum paper. Again, it's all these papers, I bought them over the years and then just not got on with. They just don't suit the method that I use, but I am now going back and planning to work on them all and just find different ways of working, to be honest, as well. And then finally here I've just got a Fabriano 5 hot press paper as well, just to throw in one extra. I've selected as close a colour as possible in the 4 different pencils that I'm going to trial this on. We've got here the Derwent Inktense. Never used these, but I recently acquired a few of these. Someone gave me some to try. So in those I've picked basically a deep purple in each, a real fuchsia pink, and I'm going to go over some areas with the white. So this is actually a fuchsia and a violet and a white in the Derwent Inktense. In the Albrecht Durer, again, it is a fuchsia, the mauve and the white. Polychromos, it's exactly the same because it's the same palette, fuchsia, mauve and white. And then I've also selected the same closest as possible in the Caran D'Ache Pablos. So we've got a violet, this is actually called purple, it looks quite pink to me, so a purple, a violet and the white there. So the only difference with all of these is the actual binder that holds them together, the actual pigment together, I should say. The Caran D'Ache is a wax base, got a wax binder in there. The Polychromos has an oil binder. Inktense I need to check actually, because obviously it's ink and it's something I've never used, so I will check that and I'll pop it into the notes underneath the video. And then the Albrecht Durer, again, that is wax base. It just happens that it's a water soluble wax base. So all I'm going to do is literally start off at the top. I've got Pablos marked out there first, so let's go in with our Pablos. I'm going to just put in an area of colour, layer some more colour over the top, then add some white in an area as well. Also, you need to get a decent amount of pigment onto the surface, especially if you're using wax or oil based pencils, because when the solvent goes on, here I'm using an odourless mineral spirit by, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Pebeo. So I'm going to just mark this in. What I'm going to do is just blend some of this pink over the top of the purple there. And the same, I'm going to bring the purple in over the top of the pink. And also, I just want to mark in some area. Let's bring this pink over a bit further. A little bit more of the purple as well. It's impressing on quite hard here. I'm going to just bring the white over the bottom area. Whole point of doing this is literally just to show the difference between using all of these pencils and what happens when you add the solvent. In the case of the watercolour pencils and the Inktense, your solvent is actually the water. So I'm just going to repeat this now. Probably going to speed the video up as well, just until I filled in all of these blocks. So let's get this marked in. Obviously that's going on, saturating that Stonehenge a lot faster than the Pastelmat was saturated, so obviously you can get less layers on that Stonehenge. Bring that over more. So I'm going to go in now with the actual odourless mineral spirit on. I'm going to work the Pablos. I'm going to come down actually, I'll do the Pablos, the Polychromos, then I'll switch to the water and do the Albrecht Durer and the Derwent Inktense, just so we can see the results of each one. As we go on the same paper. So this is the Pablo first of all. You can just see it's dissolving it quite nicely. Obviously the final results are going to be when this dries, so it's quite a soft blend come through there, and I'm just going to drag, just to show you, you can drag this pigment out into the rest of the paper, so you could create a nice soft effect with that one. Over to the Polychromos now. Again, a little bit of a deeper blend here. A bit more richness, but again it might be because it's still wet at the moment. This is the area that we've got the white at the bottom. The only difference I'd say with these, as opposed to how I use my, again I'm going to drag some more of this out, is how I use my watercolour pencils. See, it's a nice soft blend again. You can pull this pigment out across the paper. As what I was going to say was the only difference being, with the Albrecht Durer, all I do with that is simply dissolve the wax. I don't tend to wiggle the brush around quite as much. I do it a little bit on the Pastelmat, just to sink it into the grooves. As you see, I just literally add water to dissolve the wax here. I don't wiggle it like I need to with the oil and the wax pencils to get those colours to blend. Again, nice rich vibrancy here. This is where we've got the white at the bottom. Again, I'm going to drag that pigment out as well. Much more of a watercolour effect, obviously because they're called watercolour pencils. There. And now onto Inktense. Like I say, I've never used these before, so the results of these, I really don't know what's going to happen. The colour went on a lot darker, even though the colour of the pencil and the pigment in the nib appeared to match that of the other pencil brands that we were using. And again, here as I add the water, the results are coming out very, very deep as well. Let's try dragging some of this outwards. And along the bottom. Okay. Right, we'll see how it dries. So I'm going to do this all over now. So that's the Pastelmat first of all. I'm going to go on to the Stonehenge. I'm going to speed up again now and we'll come back to the results later. Saying that, the difference straight away on this Stonehenge is very noticeable as opposed to how those pencils work on the Pastelmat. Here's the white area, and here I'm actually struggling to move any of the pigment. I'm trying quite hard there as well. So, okay, I'll carry on through. Okay, so these have all dried now. It's quite an interesting experiment. It's something I would recommend that you actually try doing this at home with your favourite pencils, and if you've got a few different papers, just to try it out. I'll try and let's have a look, see if I can bring this up to the camera. I can zoom actually, I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so the top line is the Pablos, which we used an odourless mineral spirit with. So we're on the Pastelmat, Stonehenge, Watercolor Paper, the Strathmore 500 and the Fabriano. I'd say Pablos, I don't know, looking at it, it hasn't blended as well as I'd like, especially on the Pastelmat because it's got more tooth. You can just see it's really, really grainy there. It's the softest of colours of all of them, so whether it's almost like that's the wax playing a role, I don't know. It just seems quite muted, like quite pastel-y in colours. I don't know if that's coming through actually on the camera. Next down we've got the Polychromos. In comparison to the Pablos above, they've come out richer, less tooth showing through. They have blended quite nicely. It's a purpley, definitely a purpley pink there, whereas those Pablos above, you can see where I've gone over with the pencil. Here onto the Stonehenge. Stonehenge isn't my favourite. I remember I didn't get a lot of coverage on there. This is the watercolour paper. No, you can see all the pencil marks. Same with the Strathmore and the Fabriano. Definitely not. Next we're down to the Albrecht Durer, and here you can see as well, if I go back up, this is where I try to drag the pigment out. You can just see that you can drag it out on the pastel mat, less so on the other papers. So if you go down to the actual watercolour pencils now, the Albrecht Durer, you can see the intensity is there. Again, you can see that you can drag the water, you can move it a lot more. That's why I literally just wash the water over. You could mix all this together, which I doubt you could do by just using OMS over the wax or the oil pencils further up. So we're onto the Stonehenge there. Obviously it's not ideal for using water on the Stonehenge. Watercolour paper's taking it quite well, but lost almost that mix of colour there. It's blended it too much, and where I've lightened it there, it's not quite as solid as on the pastel mats. Strathmore's, do you know what, the Strathmore 500, which is this one here, has actually worked quite well, and that's given me a little bit of hope that I might try my Durers out on there as a base. And the Fabriano, again, a bit of a mess with that one. Now down to the Inktense. Now in comparison to the others, you can just see how dark this has come out. You can move the ink around. It's left, the lighter colour hasn't blended very well at all, but the dark colours have given a real deep intensity. So if you're looking for a real deep underlayer, base layer, I'd imagine using the darks of the Derwent Inktense would be really good. Stonehenge, just squiggly pencil marks again, same as on the watercolour paper. I'm surprised at that, because obviously the watercolour paper is designed to take liquid. It hasn't blended well at all then, not if you go back and compare the intensity on the pastel mat. A little bit better on the Strathmore 500, and again the Fabriano is a bit of a washout there all round. So it hasn't swayed me from sticking to using my pastel mat. I know now that the Pablos don't sit too well on it if I want to use mineral spirits. The Polychromos do, the Albrecht Durer still I love on there. And the Inktense I might go if I want something really intense on there. And the other option I might look at using more is going back to trying out my Strathmore 500. So I hope that was a worthwhile little experiment that I showed you there. And I'll try and come up with something else next. Okay, thanks then.